Today I'm going to be working on my 1999 Lincoln Continental, and the issue with it is it's not getting fuel. The first step really to this is checking your fuel rail to see if you have any pressure in the system, and you can do that with a special tool, and I'll show you exactly where to hook that up. And if you're not getting fuel pressure, then you know there's some sort of issue with your fuel system. So really on this car, the best way to tell whether you've got a fuel issue or not is to get a fuel pressure gauge. You can buy them on Amazon, and there's a Schrader valve right here on the fuel rail. You just plug it in there and start up the car a few times and see if you get any pressure. If you don't, then you know you have an issue somewhere in your fuel system. Okay, so the first thing you should check if your fuel pump's not working or you don't think you're getting fuel is the fuel pump inertia switch. And on this particular model, which is a 99, it is on the B pillar. And I didn't even see this little port until recently, but there is a little panel that you can push back on here. And down inside, you'll see a red button, which is right here. You can see if that has been, if it's up, you can try and depress it by pushing down on it. And particularly if you were in recently in a fender bender and you can't get it started, I would check here first. Okay, so back here is the fuel pump module. It's that box right there. It could be what's bad in your case, but in my case it wasn't. I've seen some articles online stating that the fuel inertia switch is back here, but it is not. So after verifying that your inertia switch is okay, it's pushed down, and you don't have fuel at the fuel rail, the next step would be to check the positive and negative wires going to your fuel pump. And to do that, you'll have to get access to it under the back seat. So we have to lift up the back seat. To do that, on this car, there is a latch located about right here and also on the other side. And to pull it out, you have to push the seat in towards the rear of the car and lift up. It will require considerable pressure, so I'm going to use both hands for this. Here's the latch that I was talking about. There's one on the other side too, and there's where it latches on to. After you get the back seat up out of the car, you'll see on the passenger side there is a kind of a body plug right here, where the fuel pump wire runs through it. What you'll want to do is pull up on this, pull it out so you can have access to the fuel pump plug. And you may not be able to pull it up all the way, and if that's the case, there is a kind of a push pin right here that you just got to pull out of the body first, and then it should give you enough slack to pull this plug up. And then to detach this plug, there is a tab right here. If you push down towards the plug and then pull out while you do it, it should come out. Okay, now that we've got the plug for the fuel pump unplugged, I will show you which wires we need to probe to find out if we have voltage. If you have the plug up like this, you know, with kind of the push pin side up, you will see in the middle there are two larger wires. On my car, it is a white with red or pink stripe and a black with yellow stripe. The white with pink or red is the positive, and the black with the yellow is the negative. On your car, the color coding may be different. They change the color codes all the time on these. So just know that in this position, these two pins are the ones you're going to probe, and that would equal this one right here and this one right here. So we're going to plug our negative side of the voltmeter into this, and the positive side on this one. And then after that, we'll start the car and see if we have voltage. This is what it should look like with your voltmeter plugged in. There's the positive and negative, and you can see on this side, that's where I've got them, the probes put into. And then on the voltmeter, it needs to be set to DC volts. So we're going to try and start the car and see if we got voltage. All right, I'm starting the car now. And you can see we have some pretty decent voltage going to this, 10 volts, which is pretty normal. So I think it's safe to say that the fuel pump is bad. Plus we didn't hear it turn on with the seat up and everything. We should have been able to hear the fuel pump turn on, coming, you know, a noise coming from the back area of the car, and we didn't hear that. So we're going to replace the fuel pump now. Okay, so now that we determined that the fuel pump is most likely bad, we're going to replace it. And there's two ways you can go about doing it. You can do it the proper way by dropping the tank and replacing it, or you can cut a hole in the center of the back seat to replace it. For two reasons, I'm going to go with cutting a hole in the back seat. The first reason is this isn't a new car, and it probably doesn't have a whole lot of life left in it with 160,000 miles. So I don't really care what happens to it. The second reason is this car is, I don't know if you can tell, but it is parked on an incline. So that makes it a lot more difficult to lift up and get to the tank. I'd rather not try to do that and end up injuring myself. So this is probably the best option, I would say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an angle grinder with a cutting wheel, and I'm going to cut a large hole right here in the back on 3 sides, and then we'll lift up on the 4th side. And then I'll show you what that looks like after I cut it. And real quick before I start this, be very careful, you know, using an angle grinder around the gas tank, and only cut as deep as you need to through this metal. We don't want to go through the fuel tank. All right, so here is what it should look like after you cut it open. I ended up cutting the hole a little bit too big for it, just because I thought that the fuel pump would be closer to the center, but as you can see, it is not in the center. It's over more to the passenger side, but I think it ended up working out well anyway, because some of these lines and stuff are really close to this metal plate here. And you know, had we cut through just a little bit closer, we may have ended up cutting those lines. So in case you're wondering, you know, what the measurements are and stuff, I'll give those to you. So those that are wondering about, you know, the measurements that I used for this, I went back about 3 inches from the seat latch on the passenger side, and then cut along straight, and that's about 17.5 inches. And then I went down on either side about a foot, and then I did cut a little bit on the back too, just up to the middle. I didn't cut in the middle because that's where some of the lines are running. But I think this will be okay. Next, we're going to clean some of the dirt off the top there before we pull that out. Okay, so I've gotten it fairly clean, dusted it off, and then I oiled the ring around it. I'm going to try and take a screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, and knock that ring loose. All right, I'm going to try and film this while I'm hitting it. All right, now that it's loose, we can pull it up out of there. Should be able to. It's not too stuck. Oh, so first we gotta remove this line. There is there's a clip in here that you just simply pull down on, and it comes right out. All right, now let's see if that comes out, and it does. And we lost a little bit of fuel. All right, that's stuck in there pretty good. Okay, in my case, mine was wedged in there pretty good. I just had to take a flathead screwdriver and just go around gently and just keep prying around it until it popped loose. So now we should be able to pull this. I believe it looks like this one's been replaced before, because I don't think Ford would have put an Airtex fuel pump in it. And it also looks like maybe somebody ran the wires a little wrong the last time that it was replaced. So I'm gonna have to loosen this wire up before I can pull this out. All right, I've got the fuel pump out of there. And what I'm going to attempt to do is just replace the motor in it, because that's what's bad. I'm not gonna replace the whole thing. Under normal circumstances, I would just replace the whole thing, but these wires are wedged in here pretty good on either side. And I really don't want to splice into those. So I just bought a new motor. I'm going to take these two screws out and see if we can get to this motor to pull it out. Okay, so I've got this disassembled now to where I can pull the pump motor out. There were 3 screws along the top here, one right here. This one I had to get to with a pair of needle nose pliers, because this hose was in the way. There's one right here, and there's one down there. You can get to most of those with a 3/16 ratchet. And then after that, the whole top should pop off of there. And this should just come right out after that. You can see it looks pretty dirty. So I'll put the new one in, and we'll go from there. Okay, so here's all the pieces that came with the pump motor. It came with a couple of washers and some O-rings. You only need one of these depending on which one your car uses. These go over top of the motor. And then also the motor came with a couple of filters. One of them goes directly on the pump motor. I believe this one goes directly on the pump motor, and this one goes on the outside of the pump. So we're going to put all the pieces on this new one so that it looks like this one. Okay, so now we got the pieces, the filter on, and the these rubber, I guess you would call them bushings, on either one of them. Just remember there's several of these little caps that are on there to keep the dirt off of the new parts. Just remember to take those off before you put them on. Now that we've gotten this far, I'm going to go ahead and work on putting it back in the fuel filter housing. So I went to put it in, and I noticed that the filter that they gave me that fits on the bottom of the motor is noticeably larger than the old one. So, you know, that's common for third-party parts to not fit correctly. So I'm going to try and trim just a little bit around the edges on here to see if we can get it to fit into the pump housing. By trimming up the edges of the filter, I was able to very snugly push it in there. All right, after you've got the screws in here, then you just need to plug it back up. Okay, and then the last thing I'm going to do on this is replace this filter here. It looks like there's a little, I don't know what you call it, some sort of little latch. You can take a pair of needle nose pliers and depress that, and then it should come off. Okay, so now that I got this other filter connected down here on the bottom, and I've got the pump motor connected right here, and I went ahead and connected the connector right here. I'm going to go ahead and test this, and we should hear it running when we turn the key. All right, I'm just going to turn the camera on and turn the key so you can hear the pump. As you heard from that, the pump is working now, so we're going to now we're going to clean this area up a little bit and replace the I guess the O-ring on it, and then, you know, we'll put the pump back in it. All right, I've cleaned up around the area where the O-ring was and put a new O-ring on it, and now I'm just going to put the pump back in. When you go to install this pump back in, there's actually a notch on either side of the pump housing. You can see it right there, and that notch has to fit right in there, and there's one on the other side where the arrow is, and that has to fit in that one as well. Now that we've got the pump back in, I'm just going to take a chisel on the end of this ring here and then hammer it in. Here's what it looks like after I hammer it in. Now we just got to connect this piece, the fuel line, back up, push it all the way in, and you can either use the new clip that was supplied with the motor or the old clip. I'm going to go with the old one since it wasn't damaged. And then just push it down in there, and it's tight. So at this point we can kind of test the car and see if it starts. Okay, so at this point we're going to try and start the car, see if it runs. From where there's so much air in the line, the fuel line, it's probably going to run rough for a little bit. You can try bleeding the line out at the Schrader valve if you want to. And I may have to do that if this doesn't clear up, but fingers crossed. And there you go. I'm gonna let it run for just a minute or two. Seems like it's running pretty good now. Okay, so now that we know that the car is working, I'm gonna work on closing this back up. What I ended up doing was I I bought some materials for this, and it should work out okay. I bought some RTV sealant to go around where I cut, and then I also bought some mending plates, and also some self-tapping screws. So that should seal it up pretty nicely, and we'll see how it goes. All right, here's what it looks like with the mending plates installed and the RTV sealant. The only thing I would recommend doing differently is perhaps getting some longer, just a little bit longer self-drilling screws, because like in this area, there's a lot of material that it has to go through, and I found that the screws weren't grabbing, but at the same time, you don't want to get screws that are too long and then end up going through the gas tank. Here it is with the seat installed back in it. So we're pretty much done with this repair. Honestly, anybody who's doing this because they think maybe it might be a little bit easier than dropping the tank, honestly, I think it's less work to drop the tank. I've dropped the tank on a couple of other cars before, and I feel like it's easier, but in my situation, I was just too afraid to lift the car up on an incline, so I kind of felt like I had to do it this way. Now that that's out of the way, the last thing I got to do is install a power steering pump, a remanufactured power steering pump, and I may make a video on that. But until then, I hope this video has helped you guys, and thanks for watching.